Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. And today's topic is about why trim is needed in identifying non-letter characters in character variables. To understand this, let's look into the data set in here, which we are calling it as test. And here we have 4 observations, and if you look into first 3 observations, we have characters which are not letters or alphabets, but they are other things like either numbers or a caret symbol in the case of third observation. Now let us quickly create this data set and then I will try to explain what we are looking for. In here, what we really want to know is what are the observations which have characters other than letters or alphabets. You can see this is true in the case of first 3 observations. The best way to find out this is by using a function known as not alpha. What not alpha does is it finds the first position of value which is not a letter or alphabet. Now what I'm doing in here is I'm using this dataset in here and I'm creating a new dataset which I'm calling a test2, but I'm using not alpha function on this variable var, and let's run this piece of code and see our result. In the result you can see that in the first 3 observations we have numbers which tells us at what location or what position we have our non-letters in our particular scenario. In apple 3 it tells that at 6th position we have something which is not a letter or alphabet. In the case of 1 dot it is at the first position. The important point to remember here is when we don't find these non-letters or alphabets, you can see that we have the value of 0. So to find out whenever we have a character which is not a letter or alphabet, then what we simply need to say is just find out whenever the value is greater than 0. Now this logic we can apply in the code in here, wherein I'm saying if not alpha var is greater than 0, means wherever this not alphabet or letter is present, give me those observations. Now if I run this, it tells me that these are 3 observations. Now till here the code is pretty simple and pretty straightforward, but now let us look into a different example wherein we are going to talk about our main topic in here. Now here I have 5 observations, but our third observation is different from what we have seen earlier, and the value of third observation is news. Now let us create this data set and then try to understand more. And this new data set is known as new test, and let me quickly run this and you can see that we have created our data set. Now let us try to apply the same logic if not alpha var is greater than 0 for this particular data set, and then now let me quickly run this and see our result. And in the result you can see that we have 4 observations, and you can also see the third observation which is news. We don't see anything which is not an alphabet in news. But to understand why this value has been picked up by not alpha, we need to understand how SAS creates its character variables. Now let us look into the data set in here. The variable var has length of 6, but if you look into news as a variable value, it has only the length of 4. But here we have defined the length of 6. Whenever we have defined a length greater than what we have the value, what will happen is it will have padded spaces. Here the variable var has length defined as 6, but the length here is 4. What will happen is it pads with 2 spaces. That means after news we have 2 spaces. That is why when we do if not alpha var is greater than 0, what it sees is at 5th position it has a space, hence it is picked up in here. How do we avoid this kind of scenarios? To avoid this kind of scenarios, it is very simple. We need to use something known as trim function. What trim function does is it removes the trailing spaces in the variable values. In the case of news, If I apply a trim function, what it does is it removes the trailing two spaces. Once these trailing two spaces are removed, this third observation has no longer any value which is not a alphabet or letter. Now let us quickly run the same piece of code but by applying trim on this variable var and see our result. And in the result you can see that we don't have news in here because we have removed the space, and then not alpha has not picked up this news because every other value in the news is a letter or an alphabet. So it is very important whenever we want to use functions like not alpha, we need to trim our variable values. By default, this is an issue of how SAS creates it character variables. That's all for this topic. If you like this topic, please give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe. Thank you.